Hey there guys, welcome back to another deck profile with yours truly, Paul Reisman. Today we are going to be taking a look at the Vir Storm combo deck that I've been playing for a long time now and was just recently featured in this past feature match. So without further ado, let's dig right into things.
This session brought to you by Odyssey Games for pre-orders and sealed product, CCG Prime for tons of singles and supplies, Cardo Doko for international rulers looking for products, and FoulLibrary.com for articles and wonderful deck lists,
as well as our guest lecturer members King Pearlshine, Vite Ramen, Mognite, and Darren Noblock.
Class is in session.
So first of all, guys, this deck is a little bit different than what you would have seen on screen. When I started putting the deck together and sort of just looking at all the cards that were in it, I only had one Lorite, which I don't know how I managed to find it in one of those games, but there was only one in the actual list itself. And so I said, you know, given that, and because this is such an integral part of the deck that I need to talk about it, let's chat a little bit about some of the changes I would make to that list that was featured. So first of all, if you're not familiar with Vir, Vir is going to see every music chant that you put on the chase, and she's going to get one melody per turn as a result of that. And that's really important for doing the combo. One of the enablers of that is Child of Rain, who produces a blue will. Don't know what you're doing here, buddy. This is a blue deck, but hey, I'll take it. I can only spend that will on music chants, which is not as restrictive as you would think. And instead of playing Child of the Eclipse, which is what I was playing in the video, I'm instead playing Child of Death instead. This God's Art will mill a couple of cards from the top of the deck, but then I get to put back any of the Resonators that are in my graveyard back into my hand. So this gives a little bit more longevity to the deck. It gives me the opportunity to bring back combo enablers, Lorites, and, well, this guy. But we'll talk about him in just a moment. Probably the most important card in the deck, in my opinion, is Age of Rain. This makes all of your chants into music chants, which means that your little snake boy can produce will to make all of that stuff turn on and be usable at a moment's notice. As you know, just an added bonus, this card draws you a card on entry, and then if you end up taking control of anything, which you can with Gleipnir, that Resonator you've controlled will take an additional +4/+4 from this one instance. So if you have multiples, they get even bigger. Just be aware of that. We're playing a combo deck, and so you have a choice in this particular instance, right? You can play Stone of Rain, which makes it so that one of your chants cannot be canceled that turn, or you can play Setting the Stage for Providence and protect your whole chase for the entire turn while also getting a card. It's also a chant, which is really helpful under Age of Rain, and so for obvious reasons, I chose Setting the Stage for Providence. I think this is probably one of the best blue cards we have ever seen in the chant lineup, and the fact that it's just so good, it just really made me steer away from Stone in order to play this instead. It also shored up my Stone base a little bit to go away from Stone of Rain, so that was helpful as well. But I think if you're playing a combo deck, this is the card you need to be playing. This card is amazing. It allows combo to exist at all, in any form. Now I'm going to go into the starters and or extenders for the deck. If you're not familiar with what excuse me, an extender in any combo deck is going to be that thing that allows you to keep your combo going, to allow you to do more plays. One of the most important ones is Einsatz. This is not in the original list, but because of the recent GP, where this was actually doing okay against one of the decks, I decided to put a couple of copies in the main board. It's absolutely free, and you foresee 2, but it also has Remnant, and it's a natural music chant. So for free, you just start off your whole combo, and if you do this before you draw, you can kind of change how you draw things, which is really, really helpful. So sometimes this deck just does not get its combo pieces, and so being able to manipulate the top card of the deck and to, you know, look at the stuff you're trying to get to can be really, really helpful. One of the other combo pieces and extenders that I really like is Loki Enters the Game of Gods. So again, it's another blue chant, it's quick cast, and then I typically use the second mode most often in this deck, right? Produce one will of any attribute, draw a card. Most of the time it's going to be blue, so I just cycle into more chants that cost 1. And pretty much the whole deck was built around this concept of we have 1 cost blue chance that can be played and chained together with Loki Enters the Game of Gods. Remember, even though it's not a music chant, under Age of Rain, it can be, so it will tick up that melody meter. Next up, we have Sonic Siren. This is essentially a free chant for you to play. It's naturally a music chant as well, so when you play this, you just get a stone back, so it's effectively free, which is really helpful for, again, generating melody. If you do end up getting to a point where you're milling the top 4 of your opponent's deck, I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. The secondary effect is a little strange, admittedly, so I'm not entirely sure there. Dissonance of Rain, very underrated card this format. If you are at Melody 4, you get to choose all 3 modes, which is really great. But if not, you can choose a number, and that number dictates what resonators you can't play, your opponent cannot play, or what non-resonator spells they can't play, or if you get a water chant in your graveyard with Remnant. So the card is really, really good. A Selective Silence is how I would usually refer to this card, right? Depending on what you want to do against your opponent. And as far as I can tell, the instances stack. So that's really, really helpful for kind of having a blanket effect while also ramping up your melody count. I went down to 3 Melody of Rain. I also had a Constriction of Rain in the main board, but I decided against that instead of that, I play Einsatz now instead. But Melody of Rain is super, super good. At the end of your melody chain, if you are at 4 or more, you take anything that is that cost of melody, and you can tuck it instead of bouncing it back to the hand, which I find really, really helpful, especially in something like the Olga matchup. So even in a situation in which I do not have Melody 4, bouncing back Magog to their hand so that their sword gets removed and they don't get it anymore, that feels really strong. Pretty much just putting back anything that sets my opponent back in tempo is really important. We used to have a card like this called Thunderstorm for Shayla, and that was a 5-cost quick cast, and now you have this. I feel old now. Next up, we have Reign of Serpents. This is one of the more important resonators in the deck, mostly because if you can't get Gleipnir online and keep her around, or you can't just outright win the game, you can start melody chaining on your opponent's turn and play this and disrupt their plays that way, going into your turn, and then you have a 1600, sometimes 2000 attack body for 1 will, which is kind of ridiculous. Of course, it has all of the same abilities as Dolly, but instead of having an enter effect, it has an activate ability. You remove 4 +1/+1 counters off this thing in order to get one of these 3 effects. Draw a card, bounce a target resonator to the owner's hand, including your own, and then produce blue. And you can only use one of those effects per turn. Keep that in mind. You only get 1 instance per copy of this per card. So just be aware of that. I've messed that up quite a few times with this particular card, but this card is amazing. It's definitely not something that I gave enough credit when I first saw it spoiled. And then you have 4, Summon the Serpent of Rain. This is a really important card to have at the end of your combo because it refills your hand, and then it helps you to sculpt by putting 2 back on top of the deck. This is an amazing card on its own. It is a music chant, and then you can contract if you're at 3 stones or higher. So basically that dictates the time in which this is going to go off. You can make this happen on turn 3 or later. We're going to talk about playstyle in a little bit, but basically turn 3, at that point, you get to do a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Gleipnir, when it comes in, it has natural flying. It has instances of melody, just like Veer does on her front side, but it also gets +4/+4 for each instance of melody that you have. This card will gain Swiftness, Drain, Eternal, and Barrier, as long as you have Melody 5 or higher. And then when it enters, you gain control of target non-Magic Stone entity. That's also going to be excluding J-Rulers, but that could be your opponent's Institute, Magic Stone Institute. It could be any of their additions, any of their regalia, or any of their resonators. So that's really, really fun to see. This is kind of a blasty, sort of glass cannon kind of deck, but there are ways in which you can play with this in such a way that you are going to just be far ahead, and your opponent's going to have a hard time kind of reestablishing. Next up we have some more extension, right? I'm playing 3 Melfi. I have mixed feelings about Melfi in general, right? If she is on the, she comes into the field with under Age of Rain, she ticks up the melody meter, but she's also a 2 cost in a deck that really, really likes 1 cost. She cantrips, so she gets you a different card, and she produces you a bunch of will, which allows you to then play a bunch of your 1-drops for free. She's working fine for me. You may or may not want to use her, but she's been incredibly powerful for me as a card in this particular deck, just because she's also a chant, and so she ticks up your melody meter. I play 3 Lorites specifically because there are a few things that can stop this deck, right? There are things that get around setting the stage for Providence, specifically Child of the Light Moon and Angelic Battle Barrier, right? Or anything that silences you, right? So if people play Dance of Spirits, God forbid we ever get Law of Silence back, if they play that, you need some way of interacting with that. And Lorette is one of the only good ways to interact with activate abilities that your opponent puts on the chase, while also giving you a blocker, which, chumps things that your opponent would use to try and kill you. So I think Lorette is absolutely staple in this deck, alongside Farrer's Spell. And the reason I say Farrer's Spell specifically over other things is because setting the stage for Providence, depending on how you play it, can be a cancel spell. It can just give your barrier, excuse me, let me rephrase, give your chase barrier so your opponent can't target it, and then all of their cancels on the chase whiff, which is kind of interesting to think about. Farrer's Spell, though, is one of those cancels that I've just always really appreciated. It can not only stop the stuff that is not trying to cancel you, it can stop any resonators that are trying to come in on your turn to increase pressure. So it's really important to have this. Plus, under Age of Rain, this thing does gain music. So this is another really good way of just punishing your opponent. That all being said, the deck really does revolve around Age of Rain. If you're not able to stick this, I've noticed the deck just kind of falls apart. So maybe that's not something you want to do. Or maybe you want to save your Age of Rain for the turn before you pop off. Depends on what you want to do. If you want to play the Killua, Girl in the Lost City, I think is what the spell is called, you can also play that. It's also a chant, so means, under Age of Rain it gets music. Very good choice in general. But my stone lineup is just 10 green-blue stones, so go for it. Some ideas that I was tooling with before this deck sort of came together. In games 2 and 3, I might bring in the Campanella package, wherein you play Campanella and you bring out Fountain of the Oblivion Moon to make sure that your opponent doesn't get to use certain activate effects against you. But then you get to draw a whole bunch of cards for free because you have 3 rulers that generally, outside of calling for stone, don't really do all that much. So this is a really good way of utilizing them, refilling your hand, which I hear is really good in combo decks. Plus, I'm just sticking another Farrer's Spell on the sideboard in case my opponent is doing some really, really wacky quick cast stuff. So guys, let me know what you think of this deck now in the comment section down below. I love Vir. This is one of the best combo decks I've seen in the game in a while. It's not really a deck you see too often, so if you are enjoying this kind of content, let us know down in the comment section down below. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, ring that bell for more content like this. And until next time, guys, this has been Paul, signing off.